Part 19 of the Evergreen, a Northern Seasonal, Spring 1895. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. The Anointed Man by Fiona Macleod. Of the 7 Achanas, sons of Robert Achana of Achana in Galloway, self-exiled in the far north because of a bitter feud with his kindred, who lived upon Eileanmore in the Summer Isles, there was not one who was not, in more or less degree, or at some time or other, fey. Doubtless I shall have occasion to allude to them again, and almost certainly to the 2 youngest, for they are the strangest folk I have known or met anywhere in the Celtic lands, from the sea pastures of the Solway to the wrack-strewn beaches of Lewis. Upon James, the 7th son, the doom of his people fell last and most heavily. Some day I may tell the full story of his strange life and tragic undoing, and of his piteous end. As it happened, I knew best the eldest and youngest of the brothers, Alistair and James. Of the others, Robert, Alan, William, Marcus, and Gloom, none save the last named survives, if peradventure he does, or has been seen of man for many years past. Of Gloom, strange and accountable name, which used to terrify me, the more so as by the whim of fate it was the name of all names suitable for Robert Achana's 6th son. I have long known nothing beyond the fact that 10 years or more ago he was a Jesuit priest in Rome, a bird of passage, whence come and whither bound no inquiries of mine could discover. 2 years ago a relative told me that Gloom was dead, that he had been slain by some Mexican noble in an old Spanish city beyond the seas. Doubtless the news was founded on truth, though I have ever a vague unrest when I think of Gloom, as though he were travelling hitherward, as though his feet on some urgent errand were already white with the dust of the road that leads to my house. But now I wish to speak only of Alistair Achana. He was a friend whom I loved, though he was a man of close on 40, and I a girl less than half his years. We had much in common, and I never knew anyone more companionable, for all that he was called Silent Alley. He was tall, gaunt, loosely built. His eyes were of that misty blue which smoke takes when it rises in the woods. I used to think them like the tarns that lay amid the canna-whitened swamps in Uist, where I was wont to dream as a child. I had often noticed the light on his face when he smiled, a light of such serene joy as young mothers have sometimes over the cradles of their firstborn. But, for some inscrutable reason, I had never wondered about it, not even when I heard and understood the half-contemptuous, half-reverent mockery with which not only Alistair's brothers, but even his father at times, used towards him. Once, I remember, I was puzzled when on a bleak day in a stormy August I overheard Gloom say angrily and scoffingly, "There goes the Anointed Man." I looked, but all I could see was that despite the dreary cold, despite the ruined harvest, despite the rotting potato crop, Alistair walked slowly onward, smiling, with glad eyes brooding upon the grey lands around and beyond him. It was nearly a year thereafter. I remember the date because it was that of my last visit to Eileanmore that I understood more fully. I was walking westward with Alistair towards the end of the day. The light was upon his face as though it came from within, and indeed, when I looked again, half in awe, I saw that there was no glamour out of the west, for the evening was dull and threatening rain. He was in sorrow. 3 months before, his brothers, Alan and William, had been drowned. A month later, his brother Robert had sickened, and now sat in Ingle from morning till the covering of the peats, a skeleton almost, shivering and morosely silent, with large staring eyes. On the large bed in the room above the kitchen, old Robert Achana lay, stricken with paralysis. It would have been endurable for me, but for Alistair and James, and above all for my loved girl-friend, Anne Gillespie, Achana's niece, and the sunshine of his gloomy household. As I walked with Alistair, I was conscious of a well-nigh intolerable depression. The house we had left was so mournful, the bleak, sodden pastures were so mournful was the stony place we were crossing, silent but for the thin crying of curlews, and above all so mournful was the sound of the sea, as, unseen, it moved sobbing around the isle. So beyond words distressing was all this to me, that I stopped abruptly, meaning to go no further, but to return to the house, where, at least, there was warmth, and where Anna could sing for me as she span. But when I looked up into my companion's face, I saw in truth the light that shone from within. His eyes were upon a forbidding stretch of ground, where the blighted potatoes rotted among a wilderness of round skull-white stones. I remember them still, these strange, far blue eyes. Lamps of quiet joy, lamps of peace they seemed to me. "Are you looking at Achnacarn, as the tract was called?" I asked in what I am sure was a whisper. "Yes," replied Alistair slowly, "I am looking. It is beautiful, beautiful. Oh God, how beautiful is this lovely world!" I know not what made me act so, but I threw myself on a heathery ridge close by, and broke into convulsive sobbings. Alistair stooped, lifted me in his strong arms, and soothed me with soft caressing touches and quieting words. "Tell me, my fawn, what is it? What is the trouble?" he asked again and again. "It is you, Alistair," I managed to say coherently at last. "It terrifies me to hear you speak as you did a little ago. You must be Fey. Why do you call that hateful, hideous field beautiful on this dreary day, and after all that has happened? Oh, Alistair!" At this I remember he took his plaid and put it upon the wet heather, and then drew me thither, and seated himself and me beside him. "Is it not beautiful, my fawn?" he asked, with tears in his eyes. Then, without waiting for my answer, he said quietly, "Listen, dear, and I will tell you." He was strangely still, breathless he seemed to me, for a minute or more. Then he spoke. "I was little more than a child, a boy just in my teens, when something happened, something that came down the rainbow arches of Caershie." He paused here, perhaps to see if I followed, which I did, familiar as I was with all fairy lore. "I was out upon the heather, in the time when the honey oozes in the bells and cups. I had always loved the island and the sea. Perhaps I was foolish, but I was so glad with my joy that golden day that I threw myself on the ground and kissed the hot sweet ling, and put my hands and arms into it, sobbing the while with a vague strange yearning. At last I lay still, nerveless, with my eyes closed. Suddenly I knew that two tiny hands had come up through the spires of the heather and were pressing something soft and fragrant upon my eyelids. When I opened them I could see nothing unfamiliar, no one was visible, but I heard a whisper, "Arise and go away from this place at once, and this night do not venture out, lest evil befall you." So I rose trembling and went home. Thereafter I was the same, and yet not the same. Never could I see as they saw, what my father or brothers or the isle folk looked upon as ugly and dreary. My father was wroth with me many times, and called me a fool. At last, whenever my eyes fell upon those waste and desolated spots, they seemed to me passing fair. At last my father grew so bitter that, mocking me the while, he bade me go to the towns, and see there the squalor and sordid hideousness wherein man dwelled. But thus it was with me, in the places they call slums, and among the smoke of the factories and the grime of destitution, I could see all that other men saw only as vanishing shadows. What I saw was lovely, beautiful, with strange glory, and the faces of men and women were sweet and pure, and their souls were white. So, weary and bewildered with my unwilling quest, I came back to Island Moor, and on the day of my homecoming, Morag was there, Morag of the Falls. She turned to my father and called him blind and foolish. He has the white light upon his brows, she said of me. I can see it, like the flicker light in a wave, when the wind's from the south in thunder weather. He has been touched with the fairy ointment. The good folk know him, and it will be thus with him till the day of his death, if a Dwenshi can die, being already a man dead yet born anew. He upon whom the fairy ointment has been laid must see all that is hideous and ugly and dreary and bitter through a glamour of beauty. Thus it has been since the MacAlpine ruled from sea to sea, and thus it is with the man, Alistair, your son. That is all, my fawn, and that is why my brothers, when they are angry, sometimes call me the Anointed Man. That is all. Yes, perhaps. But oh, Alistair Achanna, how often have I thought of that most precious treasure you found in the heather, when the bells were sweet with honey ooze. Did the wild bees know of it? Would that I could hear the soft hum of their wandering wings. Who of us would not barter the best of all our possessions, and some there are who would surrender all, to have one touch laid upon the eyelids, one touch of the fairy ointment. But alas, the place is far and the hour is hidden. No man may seek that for which there can be no quest. Only the wild bees know of it, but I think they must be the bees of Magmel, and there no man that liveth may wayfare yet. End of Part 19.